It wasn't just a tool, it was a death sentence in slow motion. This device didn't just wound, it shredded flesh like paper. The Spanish Tickler wasn't just one single device. It was a category of flesh-ripping tools used across Spain, France, and Germany during the Middle Ages. Sometimes it was a simple handheld metal claw. Other times it was attached to a wooden handle or even mounted on a long pole to give torturers more reach. And despite its misleading name, this wasn't a tickling tool, far from it. The curved, razor-sharp claws were meant to tear skin, muscle, and even tendons right off the bone. The origins of the Spanish Tickler are murky, but records suggest it was widely used during the Spanish Inquisition, where heretics, witches, and political prisoners were tortured into confessing crimes, whether they were guilty or not. It also became a favorite tool for public punishment, used to make an example of thieves, us rebels, and other so-called criminals. What made this device particularly horrifying was its simplicity. Unlike elaborate torture machines like the rack or the Iron Maiden, the Spanish Tickler was small, portable, and required zero setup. A torturer could inflict unbearable agony on the spot. No restraints needed, no complicated mechanisms, just raw, merciless pain. The victim was often stripped naked to expose as much skin as possible. In some cases, they were chained to a wall or a wooden frame, making escape impossible. The executioner would drag the metal claws across their body, slowly and deliberately. Each stroke peeled away layers of flesh, leaving behind gaping wounds. The jagged metal hooks were designed to catch onto muscle and sinew, making every movement excruciating. It didn't cause instant death. Victims would remain alive and conscious, their skin hanging in shreds. Some were left to bleed out, while others suffered days or even weeks of repeated torture before they finally succumbed to infection, shock, or sheer exhaustion. The Spanish Tickler was not confined to dark dungeons. It was also used in public executions and interrogations. During the Spanish Inquisition, it was used to extract confessions from accused heretics and witches. In France and Germany, thieves and rebels were often tortured with it in front of crowds, to send a warning to anyone thinking of disobeying the law. Some historical accounts suggest it was even used on adulterers, especially women, as a form of brutal public shaming. The Spanish Tickler didn't discriminate. It was used on men, women, and even teenagers. Anyone who found themselves on the wrong side of the law, the church, or those in power, could end up torn apart, piece by piece. During the Spanish Inquisition, the Catholic Church used brutal methods to force confessions from those accused of heresy. Anyone suspected of practicing forbidden religions, spreading unapproved ideas, or even simply speaking out against the church, could be tortured with the Spanish Tickler. For accused witches, the horror was even worse. Many were stripped naked and tortured in public, their flesh slowly peeled away to reveal what interrogators believed was the mark of the devil, often just birthmarks or scars. Medieval justice was not kind to criminals, no matter how small their crime. Petty thieves, highway robbers, and rebels who challenged the ruling elite often found themselves at the mercy of this flesh-ripping device. In some cities, the Spanish Tickler was used as a public spectacle. Criminals were tortured in the town square to send a warning to others. Some were tied to posts, while executioners slowly tore their skin off, leaving them to die from blood loss or infection. Captured soldiers, spies, and traitors were often tortured for information, and the Spanish Tickler was a favorite tool for the job. Unlike quick executions by sword or axe, this device ensured maximum pain and suffering. Some prisoners had their faces mutilated, ensuring that even if they survived, they would be left permanently disfigured, serving as a living warning to others. perhaps one of the most horrifying uses of the Spanish Tickler was against women accused of unfaithfulness. In a society where women had little power, even false accusations could lead to death. In some cases, unfaithful wives were dragged into the streets, where executioners would use the Spanish Tickler to tear the skin from their arms, legs, and backs, a brutal form of public humiliation before their final execution. This wasn't just a torture device. It was a weapon of fear used to control society through sheer terror. And for those unfortunate enough to fall victim to it, death was often a slow, agonizing process. But what made this device even more terrifying? The psychological impact. Even those who never felt its claws lived in constant fear of it. For centuries, the Spanish Tickler was a symbol of power, punishment, and terror. But like all tools of oppression, its time eventually came to an end. By the 18th century, ideas about justice and human rights began to shift. Philosophers and reformers condemned torture as inhumane and ineffective. European monarchs started banning extreme punishments, realizing they did more harm than good. Public executions and torture were once a form of entertainment, but that began to change as societies became more civilized. The idea of watching someone be torn apart in the streets became unacceptable. By the late 1700s, most European nations outlawed public torture. Torture devices like the Spanish Tickler might seem like relics of a brutal past, something humanity has long abandoned. But have we truly evolved, or have we just hidden our cruelty behind closed doors? History has a way of hiding its worst horrors in plain sight. The Spanish Tickler may be gone, but its legacy, fear, suffering, and control still exists in different forms. So the real question is, have we truly left the age of medieval torture behind, or have we simply given it new names and new disguises? And, more importantly, if cruelty like this is still happening today, who is speaking out against it?